In this video, we're going to focus on word awareness and teaching children and pointing out that words are separated by spaces. So that's kind of what word awareness is understanding that a word has a beginning and an end. So I know one of the main ways that I do this every single day, every single morning in my kindergarten classroom, and I know some preschools, I know where both of my boys went to preschool, they started their day every single day with a morning meeting. And in morning meeting, they read the morning message. So I'm not in my classroom right now, but I have an example for you. And again, I know it's backwards, but I'm going to kind of block my face, and so you're going to see this when I talk about it. But every day on my board, the morning message is up, and it usually starts with, actually the beginning would be the date. So, you know, Friday, October 13th, 2017. And it always starts off the same. So I always write, good morning, boys and girls. How are you today? And then there's a little bubble. So this little bubble that's on my board is actually where the children come up and they write in how they are. As the school year goes on, they start to, you know, they know how to write good and happy already right now, because those are two of our sight words, which I call brain words just to make them fun. So those, they already know how to spell. On Mondays, or after a long weekend, it may say, did you have a good weekend? And they're learning how to write yes and no already. So we're building a lot of that word awareness. So on this one, I said, today we are going to learn about pumpkins. Now, as I read this my morning message with the children, I have a pointer, and it's a little hand with a pointer finger, because I'm really trying to show them, and I move along so that they're understanding that words move. So we're going to pretend this is my pointer. And as we read, I point every day, and it says, good morning, boys and girls. How are you today? And then the children comes up and write it. And while the children's writing it, I go around and I ask the children how they are today, so they're getting that individual piece of it too. And then we go, today we are going to learn about pumpkins. And I also like to point out, I know this isn't necessarily word awareness, but what the exclamation point means and what the question mark means. And notice that there's another exclamation point here. Sometimes there's a period depending on what we're doing. And we talk about what those means. Why would you use an exclamation point? Why would you use a question mark? And we talk about that. Because even if children aren't ready for that piece, the exposure to it, they pick up on it, and that's really how they're learning. It's so much lesson just in reading our morning message right there. So as you're observing, kind of like what I mentioned in one of the other videos, is that your job kind of is to be an observer and see where all the children are at. Some children might not be ready for this, but what you can do is, maybe you've noticed that George is ready, and he's pointed out, oh, in that sentence there's 5 words, and you've asked them, how do you know? So maybe you've noticed that, you know, George is ready for this, and so George and Ella are ready. So you're going to do a little mini lesson with George and Ella, because again, they're at the point where they're ready to vamp up a little bit. And one of the things that I think is really important, depending on, like I do guided reading, which is small individual reading groups, and while we're reading, I'm encouraging the children to use their pointer finger, and we move our finger for each word. And there's so many books that, I'm going to show you an example, that you can get, that, because maybe some of your preschoolers are learning. I've had kids come into kindergarten who are almost reading chapter books before. Not necessarily meaning the comprehension is there, but I've had children come in that young and that advanced. So some books you can get, or you can even make these, have little dots underneath so the children can actually lift it. And you want to explain that you're lifting it for each word you read. So, the dog is white. And I do a lot of this, and we start this right at the beginning of kindergarten with all of my group. And if they're not necessarily getting it, that's okay. It will come with practice. So you might notice, so George and Ella are ready, and you want to read this book, and you say, all right, and you can even do this piece in a whole group, this introduction of how many words are in this title. And somebody may say 5, so then you obviously know that they're not understanding the concept of words. Somebody say made two, and you say, oh, how do you know that there's two there? And they might be able to point out to you 1, 2. They might not be able to explain the space. They may be able to say 1, 2. So point that out. Say, you're right. The word the and the word mitten. And we know that there's 2 words because there's a space right here. We put spaces in between words. And you point that out. So the mitten. You may even want to point out, because it's a title, and I do this in kindergarten, the and mitten, it's a title. So they need to be uppercase, just like in our names. You know, Katie, the K is uppercase and the rest lowercase. Younger kids may not be ready. Kindergarten is. We're at that point where we're talking about that now. And then you can read and you can point. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wood as white as snow. And you're moving your finger. And again, it's from the exposure piece, making it fun for children. And, you know, somebody may say, I've had this. So when you say how many words are in that sentence, they may say, what is there, 10? What did I just count? They may say 9. And you notice there's 9 letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So then you know that the child isn't necessarily ready to understand spacing. So you just do more introduction of it. Well, space, your words have spaces between them. So the mitten. And you just point it out to them. And never let them feel down. You're like, oh, there are 9 letters in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our title has 9 letters, and it has 2 words with a space. And it's pointing it out. And again, through that repetition and explaining it and doing activities for children that are ready like this, it comes and they really start to figure it out and get it. So that is word awareness, understanding that there's a beginning and end of a word.